머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Quick Korean. Today, we will be looking at the section entitled 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요, or, meaning in English, I'm going to go buy some medicine for my headache. The topic of today's lesson is public places. We will learn vocabulary related to public places and the grammar points 어서 and 으로 가요. After studying this lesson, you will be able to talk about places that you go to in Korean. Lastly, in the culture section, we will explore Korean pharmacies. Well then, let's get started. First, listen carefully to today's dialogue. In today's dialogue, a neighbor is coming back from throwing away her garbage and runs into Mrs. Kim. She asks Mrs. Kim where she is going. Where do you think Mrs. Kim is going? Let's take a listen to their conversation and find out.
유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요?
네, 약국에 가요.
어디 아파요?
머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요.
So, were you able to understand the conversation? Where is Mrs. Kim going? Right, she's going to the pharmacy or 약국. Why is she going to the pharmacy? Well, before taking a closer look at the conversation, let's first look at the vocabulary and grammar that come out in the dialogue. First is the vocabulary section for this lesson. Our first word here is 오랜만이에요. Please read along and repeat after me. 오랜만이에요. 오랜만이에요. Now, it has been a long time since these two people have seen each other. And so in Korean, when they greet each other, they say 오랜만이에요 to mean that it has been a long time. Now, let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 오랜만이에요. Now our next word here is 약국. Please read along and repeat after me. 약국. 약국. Now, let's say I'm feeling ill, so I would probably need to go buy some medicine. When you need to go to get some medicine, you'd go to the pharmacy, or in Korean, we'd say 약국. So now let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 약국. Now our next word here is 머리가 아프다. Now please read along and repeat after me. 머리가 아프다. 머리가 아프다. Now in this picture here we have Mrs. Kim and she looks like she's in pain. Now where does it look like she's hurting? Right, it appears that she has a headache. So in Korean, we can say to have a headache by saying 머리가 아프다. Now let's go ahead and say this together one more time. 머리가 아프다. Now our next word here is 약. Please read along and repeat after me. 약. 약. Now let's say that I'm not feeling so well, so I would go to the pharmacy, and what would I buy at the pharmacy? Right, I would buy medicine, or we would say in Korean, 약. Now, after buying the medicine, I would take the medicine. In Korean, we would say 약을 먹다, literally meaning eat the medicine. Now, let's go ahead and say this word together one more time. 약. Now, our next word here is 사다. Please read along and repeat after me. 사다. 사다. Now, in the picture here, someone brings Mrs. Kim some fruit. Now, Mrs. Kim gives her money. So, what is she doing? Right, she is buying the fruit. So, in Korean, 사다 means to buy. So, let's go ahead and say the word together one more time. 사다. Now, let's review the words that we have just learned. Now, these two people have met for the first time in a very long time. How would they greet each other? Right, they would say 오랜만이에요, meaning it has been a long time. Now, let's say you are feeling ill. Where would you go? Correct, you would go to the pharmacy or 약국. Now here, Mrs. Kim is in pain. Where is she hurting? Correct, it looks like she has a headache, so in Korean we would say 머리가 아프다. So what do you usually take when you are not feeling well? Right, you would take medicine or 약. Recall, to take medicine in Korean, you would say 약을 먹어요. Now here, Mrs. Kim is at the supermarket. She is buying some apples, and she is paying for the apples. So what did Mrs. Kim just do? Correct, she just bought the apples, or in Korean we would say 사다. And in Korean we could say 사과를 사요, meaning she buys apples. Very good.
유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요?
네, 약국에 가요.
어디 아파요?
머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요.
Now, let's take a closer look at the dialogue for this lesson. If you recall, today's dialogue is between Mrs. Kim and a neighbor that she hasn't seen for a long time. Now, they get to chatting with each other, and let's go ahead and see what they chat about. Now, first here, the neighbor first greets Mrs. Kim and says, 유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요? Now here, if you recall, this 오랜만이에요 means long time no see. So as I mentioned earlier, they haven't seen each other for quite a while. And she also says 어디 가요? Which means where are you going? Now in Korean, a lot of people, when you greet them, they tend to ask 어디 가요 or where are you going? So Mrs. Kim responds 네, 약국에 가요, or that she's going to the pharmacy. So it looks like Mrs. Kim is in pain and her neighbor is a little concerned, so she asks 어디 아파요? Or are you hurting somewhere? And Mrs. Kim responds 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요. So literally, because her head is hurting or she has a headache, she is going to the pharmacy to go buy some medicine. So it looks like Mrs. Kim is in pain. Hopefully she feels better. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the grammar for this section. Our first grammatical point here is 어서 아서. Now this 어서 아서 here is used to specify some reason for some action or some result. Now you can see that it's broken up into two parts. There's a front part and a back part. Now the part preceding 어서 is your reason. So your reason would be the part before the 어서, and after it would be kind of your result. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. Now our example here is 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요. Now if we look at the second part here first, or our result, it is 약을 사러 가요, meaning go buy some medicine. Now why? Why is, in this case, Mrs. Kim, why is she doing that? Well, if you look at the first part, we have this 머리가 아프다, or that she has a headache. So if we combine all this together, we have the reason here on the left and the resulting action here on the right. So combine this all together, we get 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요. Or now let's go ahead and say the sentence together. 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Here we have 점심을 너무 많이 먹어서 배가 불러요. Now again, this is practice using this 어서 아서, and the result is on the right here. So if we look at the right, we have this 배가 불러요. So 배가 불러요 means, in Korean, means to be full. So if you eat enough, then you'd be full after you eat, right? So it's that full. Now, so in this case, this person is full. Now, why? If we look at the reason, it's right here in the first part. 점심을 너무 많이 먹어요. So in other words, this person ate too much for lunch. So you can imagine if you eat too much, of course, you'd be full. So if we go ahead and put this all together, we get 점심을 너무 많이 먹어서 배가 불러요. Now let's go ahead and read this sentence together. We have 점심을 너무 많이 먹어서 배가 불러요. Great. Now you're probably wondering, okay, so when do we use this 아서? When do we use this 어서? Well, we'll go ahead and take a look at that right now. So as you can see here, this 아서, 어서 is used together with verbs, such as we have 아프다 and 먹다 and 운동하다. Now, so when to use 아서, when to use 어서? Well, recall if the syllable in front of 다 has a vowel that is either 아 or 오, we use 아서 right here. Now, 아프다 here is a little special case. It ends in 으 right here. So when the vowel ends in 으, we just go one more syllable back. So in other words, we look at the syllable that's in front of 푸, which would be 아. So here, we have an 아. So that tells us we want to use this 아서. Now, if we combine this together, we get 아프, 아서. Now, when this 푸 and this 아 meet, the 으 sound kind of falls off, and we're left with 아파서, which you see up here. Now, in the second example, we have 먹다. So how is 먹다? Now, if we look at 먹다, it has the vowel 어. Now, this is neither 아 nor 오, so we use the 어서. And when we combine 먹 with 어서 right here, we get 먹어서. Now, as you probably know already, in Korean, there are a lot of verbs that end in 하다. Now, 하다 is a little special case. So when you have 하다, such as in 운동하다 right here, for 하다 verbs, you use this 여서 right here. So when you combine these two together, you get 운동하여서. Now, when you have 하 and 여 together, it kind of shortens just to 해, and we get 운동해서, as you can see right here. So let's go ahead and read through these examples together. Please repeat after me. 아프다, 아서, 아파서. 먹다, 어서, 먹어서. 운동하다, 여서, 운동해서. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the next grammatical point. Our next grammar point is this 으러 가요. Now right away you notice that we have this 가요 here, which means, if you remember, to go. So when you use this grammar point, it's telling us you're going somewhere and you're specifying your reason or your purpose for going to that place. So that part would come right here. So your reason or your purpose for going somewhere. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. Here our first example is 머리가 아파서 약국에 약을 사러 가요. So if you look at the first part here, it's 머리가 아파서. So there's your reason. And in the second part, it says why you're going to that place. So in this case, you would see that 약을 사러. So you're going to buy medicine. And you combine it with this 사러 가요 to say you're going to buy medicine. So let's go ahead, and if you look at this sentence here, let's read through it together. We have 머리가 아파서 약국에 약을 사러 가요. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at another example. Here we have 식당에 밥을 먹으러 가요. So if you look at the first part here, you have 식당에 밥을 먹다. So, meaning you eat at a restaurant. Now, that would be your reason. So you say 먹으러 가요, which means I'm going for this is my purpose here, to go and eat. So you see that you get this 먹으러 가요, which means to go to eat. So let's go ahead and read through this sentence together. We have 식당에 밥을 먹으러 가요. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the usage in greater detail. Here we have 사다. Now you'll notice 사다 does not end in a consonant, it ends in a vowel. So you can see here there's no consonant. So we use this 러 가요. But what about 먹다 down here? 먹다 does end in a consonant. You see that we have a consonant here. And in that case, we would use this 으러 가요 when there's a consonant there. So let's go ahead and read through these examples together. Please repeat after me. 사다, 사러 가요. 먹다, 먹으러 가요. Well done. Now, let's go ahead and take another listen to the dialogue for this section.
유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요?
네, 약국에 가요.
어디 아파요?
머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요.
Now, let's take another look at the dialogue. This time, let's read it together. Listen and repeat after me. 유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요? 네, 약국에 가요. 어디 아파요? 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요. Now, let's go through the dialogue again. This time, you read the role of Mrs. Kim.
유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요? 어디 아파요?
Great. Now, let's go through the dialogue once more. This time, you read the role of the neighbor.
네, 약국에 가요. 머리가 아파서 약을 사러 가요.
Well done. Now it's time for speaking practice. First, we will practice using the grammar pattern 어서, 아서 that we learned a little earlier. Now here, take a look at the picture and complete the sentences. Now if you look at the given sentence here, we have this 늦었어요, meaning that someone was late. In the picture here, you can see that this person here was late to, it looks like, a meeting, and you can see he's sweating. Now, why was he late? Well, if we look at the picture on the left here, we have this 차가 막히다. Now, 차가 막히다 means that there was a lot of traffic. So you could see that since there was a lot of traffic, he was late to work. Now, we want to use this reason to tell that why he was late, and we want to use 아서 or 어서. Now, in this case, which one would we use? Now here, you can see that 막히다, here, the vowel here is E, which is neither 아 nor 오. So we'd want to use the 어서 to complete the sentence. So now how will we go ahead and complete the sentence? We would say 차가 막혀서 늦었어요. Great. Now, here we have Mr. Lee. And you can see the second part of the sentence here says 일찍 잤어요, or that he slept early. Now, why did he go to sleep early? Well, we have the reason here on the left side, 피곤하다, or which means to be tired. So it looks like he went to sleep because he was tired. Now, we want to go ahead and use 아서 or 어서 to say that he was tired. So which one would we use here? Now, here we have a 하다 verb, right? So when we have 하다, remember the 하다 becomes 해서. So we would probably get 피곤해서. So now if we put this all together, what would we get? If we read the sentence, we get 너무 피곤해서 일찍 잤어요. Or that he was so tired that he went to sleep early. Now, if we look at this sentence here, look at the back part. Here's the result. It says 회사에 못 갔어요, or that he wasn't able to go to the company or work. So why? Why was he not able to go? Well, the reason is right here on the left side. We have this 감기가 심하다, or that the cold is severe. So in this case, 심하다 would mean to be severe. So putting together, we have the cold is severe. So how would we say that he could not go to the company because his cold was severe? So we want to look at this 심하다. So how do we use that with the grammar pattern? Since it's a 하다, it ends in 하다. Remember the 하다 changes to 해서. So if we put that all together in the sentence below, what would we get? We would get 감기가 심해서 회사에 못 갔어요. Well done. Now, let's practice using the grammar 으러 가요, which we learned a little bit earlier. Now here, 준수 is with 혜진, and 준수 says, 혜진 씨, 어디에 가요? Or, where are you going, 혜진? Now, here you can see in the picture, 혜진 is going to the bookstore. Now, what is her purpose for going to the bookstore? Well, it's right here, 책을 사다, or to buy a book. So how would we say that she is going to the bookstore to buy a book? Now, the first part of her response is given to you. We would say 서점에 책을 사러 가요. Now here, someone asks 준수 a question. She asks, 준수 씨, 왜 은행에 가요? Or, why are you going to the bank? So, why is he going to the bank? Well, his reason is right here, is 돈을 찾다, or to go withdraw some money. So then how could 준수 say that he is going to the bank to withdraw money? Correct. He would say 돈을 찾으러 가요. Great. Now it's time for listening practice. Mrs. Kim is having a conversation with her neighbor. The two of them have not seen each other for a very long time. Her neighbor asks Mrs. Kim where she is going. So where do you think Mrs. Kim is going? And why do you think she is going there? Now let's listen carefully to the conversation.
유미 씨, 오랜만이에요. 어디 가요?
네, 마트에 가요.
뭐 사러 가요?
더워서 아이스크림 사러 가요.
Were you able to understand the conversation? Let's check your understanding by answering a couple of questions. Our first question here, question number 1, asks, 유미 씨는 어디에 가요? Or, where is Mrs. Yumi Kim going? Now, our answer choices here are 마트, mart, or 약국, pharmacy. So, do you remember where she is going? Correct. She said she's going to the mart, so our correct answer would be 마트. Now, our next question, question number 2, asks, 유미 씨는 무엇을 사러 가요? Or, what is Mrs. Kim going there to buy? Now, our answer choices here are 과일, fruit, or ice cream, ice cream. So, what is she going there to buy? Right. She is going there to buy ice cream, so the correct answer would be 아이스크림. Excellent. Now it's time for the Vocabulary Plus section. Here, we will learn more words related to public places. Now, our first word here is 우체국. Now, 우체국, as you can see, is a post office. And at a post office, you can mail letters and send packages. So, why would you go to the post office? Well, one reason we could say is 우체국에 편지를 붙이러 가요. Or to go mail a letter. Now here, this 붙이다 means to mail something. In this case, we're using it to say we're mailing a letter. Now our next word here is 은행. Now at a bank or 은행, you can open an account. So when you open an account, you can deposit and withdraw money. So why did 준수 go to the bank? Well, here it says 은행에 통장을 만들러 가요. So you can see that here, this word 통장 means bank book. So you usually have a bank book that goes with your bank account. Now our next word here is 도서관. Now at a library or 도서관, you can read books and study. So why do you suppose these two people came to the library? Right, it looks like they're looking at books, so we can say 도서관에 책을 보러 가요. Now our next word here is 대사관. Now at the embassy or 대사관, you can get a visa. So why do you think 준수 here went to the embassy? Right. 대사관에 비자를 만들러 가요. So, or in other words, he went to the embassy to get a visa. Now our next word here is 미술관. Now a 미술관 or art museum is a place where you go to see paintings. So why would people go to an art museum? In Korean we could say 미술관에 그림 보러 갈 거예요. Or that going to the art museum to go see pictures or paintings. Now our next word here is 박물관. Now at a 박물관 or museum, you go to see things from a long time ago and they are on display like you see in the picture here. So why might you go to a museum? Well, in Korean we could say 박물관에 전시회를 보러 갈 거예요. Now here, this 전시회 means an exhibition or show. Now, let's go over the words that we just learned in this section. Now here, you can see at the top, it says 편지를 보내러 가요. So, where do you go if you want to go and send a letter? Right, you would go to the 우체국. Or in Korean, you could say 우체국에 편지를 보내러 가요. Or I go to the post office to send a letter. Now next, here it says 비자를 만들러 가요. Or to go get a visa. Now, where would you go if you wanted to go get a visa? Right, you would go to the 대사관. Or in Korean, we could say 대사관에 비자를 만들러 가요. Or I go to the embassy to get a visa. Next, we have here, it says 돈을 찾으러 가요. Or go to withdraw money. So if you want to go withdraw money, where would you go? Right. In Korean, you would go to the 은행. And in Korean, you could say 은행에 돈을 찾으러 가요. Or I go to the bank to withdraw money. Excellent. Finally, it is time for the Korean culture section. When you are not feeling well, where would you go? If it is severe, you may go to the hospital. You may get a prescription for medication, which you can pick up at the pharmacy. Like this, in Korea, the hospitals and pharmacies are separate. Today, we will explore Korean pharmacies. Now, let's take a closer look.
한국의 의약분업. 한국의 약국에 가서 약을 사려면 의사의 처방전이 필요합니다. 한국에서는 의약분업이 시행되어 약사가 마음대로 약을 조제해 줄 수 없기 때문입니다. 약국에서 가벼운 가정상비약은 살 수 있으나 전문 의약품은 살 수 없습니다. 병원에 가서 진단을 받고 의사가 작성한 약 처방전을 가지고 가야만 증세에 맞는 전문적인 약을 살 수 있습니다.
Now, let's go over what we learned today. Today's topic was public places. We learned about vocabulary related to public places and the grammar points 어서 and 으로 가요. Finally, in the culture section, we explored Korean pharmacies. So, how do you feel? Do you think you can talk about the places that you go to in Korean? Great! Well, that brings us to the end of this lesson. See you next time!